Certainly.
Yes, he can.
Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it. Unacceptable like any reason.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Thanks for joining us for another Donnybrook, the first of spring. On the second half, on Next Up, we'll talk to Bob Lenahan, sports gambling expert. It'll be a great show. You can bet on that. Let's meet the panelists, starting with Wendy Wiese from the Big 550, KTRS. Joe Holleman sitting in for Bill McClellan, who's taking the week off. Joe, of course, with STLtoday.com and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Ray Hartmann, founder of the Riverfront Times, and from the St. Louis American, where he edits the paper and writes a column, Alvin Reid. We're going to start with you, Ray, but there's news for our viewers. We've been following your column, boy, on and off for 40 or more years in the Riverfront Times. And you're making a switch because now we'll be able to find your column on a weekly basis on Substack, a relatively new forum. And that's where we're going to find your printed word every week.
Yep, I thank you for, maybe it's more off than on for many people, but I've actually done the column in one form up through when I sold the paper, and then in the last 4 years, Sarah Fensky was nice enough to have me back, and in fact, she did a piece that's, I guess, going to be online tomorrow, talk about the fact I'm no longer going to write a weekly column. I am planning on contributing occasionally to the paper. Back when I worked for a living, I did a cover story occasionally, and so hopefully I'll be still kind of sentimental about the RFT, but I won't be doing a column. But for those that want to do it, I'm going to try Substack. It's a site that started in 2017. Hopefully people want to check it out.
How do we find you?
I don't know. Just go to Substack.com. I think it'll be in actually, if you look at the RFT tomorrow, Sarah's doing a piece of the way to do it. So
Very well. Good for you.
Very
Congratulations.
exciting. Very exciting.
Well, the Attorney General Andrew Bailey was also writing, this time a 100-page addendum to his previous writ of quo warranto. I can't pronounce it, but I think you know what I'm talking about. This is the petition he's using to try and remove Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner. And he added a lot of facts and stories, including one that said that in one murder case, the key witness was told, don't show up for trial by the Circuit Attorney's office. So she didn't. And then when it came to trial, the Circuit Attorney's assistant said, well, we can't go to trial because the witness didn't show up, and they dropped the charges. There are a lot of stories like that. Do you think this spells doom, finally, for Kim Gardner, the embattled circuit attorney? Absolutely not. I mean, the nice thing for Andrew Bailey, like a lot of the cases that he does and that Eric Schmidt did, is he wins. He doesn't have to, whether he wins in court means nothing. He wins by filing it, okay? And so it's a political win for him, and you know, that's the world we live in. It's happening all over the country. It's not just here. Kim Gardner is an easy target, and a lot of people are very concerned about how well she runs the office. And that's fine. But the fact of the matter is, at least the attorneys I talk to say that isn't the criteria that the Supreme Court's going to use. That for the quo warranto process, it has to be, you know, active malfeasance, some bad intent, that simply not doing your job well, if that's the allegation, is something the voters might decide, but that's not the law. And so I think that he's going to get his win by having filed it. You know, whatever comes of this, I don't think that Kim Gardner is going anywhere.
I don't want to predict what the outcome of a legal battle will be. I do disagree with the point that it doesn't have to do with not doing your job well. The last time the state tried to use the quo warranto procedure was against Billy Boykins, and they did indeed remove the license collector from office for not doing her job of collecting revenue. It had nothing to do with extraneous things, but it did include, I mean, it's sort of, that whole process is sort of a kitchen sink approach, that it's not just because the unfortunate incident, the sad incident with the young lady from Tennessee. That is maybe the reason it came to a head, But what it does is it takes in your overall performance, indeed, of how you do your job. So the idea of trials getting missed, people being released on bond and then not coming back, witnesses being told, don't show up, there's not going to be case, and then your prosecutor says, we can't go forward because that witness isn't here. Those things indeed all get taken in. So it is about how you do your job. And it also isn't about, and I know that some defense of Kim Gardner is saying, well, it's people don't like her in office. I think it goes well beyond that, and I think when you look at first, what was it, basically a 100-page initial filing and then another 100-page addition, when you go through this, it's something that we've all sort of known for the last 6.5 years. It's just now you have it all in one nice, compact, compiled list of everything that she's done.
And so it's overwhelming.
So there's the Tisby perjury. There's all of these things. And so now, do I think
in the interest of time, let's move on.
Do I think they'll get her out of office?
Okay.
Don't know.
Don't think so, sadly, because the weight of, I mean, the economic impact that she is having on our region at this point, especially when you read one allegation after another, according to this document. I wouldn't want to be Kim Gardner, and I would be leaving office to spend time with my family as fast as I possibly could.
I will say to that, she could be having a magnificent economic impact. She may not be having a dime impact on our economic development or anything. I don't think there's any way that you could even prove that. I think you could have a spotless prosecuting attorney, but I don't know that the dial on how much revenue the city's making and all that. It could be a lot, it could be nothing. So I'm not going to go down there. I will say this, never mind what people think of Kim Gardner and whether you like me or not. Some of the most powerful voices in law in the state of Missouri are fellow prosecutors, and they are red meat conservative in most of these counties, say, no, we are not with this, because this is going someplace that you do not want to go. And if you don't want to listen to anybody else, I'd listen to them.
Interesting enough. Hey, Joe, I want to ask you about Cori Bush. You wrote about her, I was going to say the new congresswoman from St. Louis, but she's not. She's been there
second term.
Second term.
Her second term.
Absolutely. She recently got married, and we wish her the best. She actually hired and married her bodyguard. And now some of her critics are saying, well, she paid this guy, what, $60,000 or so? About
$65,000.
He's in her family, but he doesn't have a security license either in Missouri or Washington, D.C. So she's also spent more than $300,000 on security. Is he really a security guard, or is it $300,000 for security guard? What's the story here?
Well, the only story that I was writing was one that she got married, and that it was somebody who was on her payroll, which I thought, her being a public official, that's what we're supposed to write about, is how they spend their money and what they're doing. And so I wrote that. Now, 2 conservative political action committees have filed complaints with the Federal Election Commission saying that it's illegal, improper, and that remains to be seen. Actually, federal election laws allow family members to work for campaigns. And let me stop right here and say, he is not being paid by the U.S. Congress. He is not a congressional staffer. He's being paid by her campaign. So I just simply thought it would be an easy story, report the facts, and get a comment from her on whether or not he was going to continue in this role. The only reason I wrote the story is after sending 4 emails and trying to get a hold of her office, she's not commenting about it. And that's really all I was hoping for from her, was just explain which one it is. In April, she has to do another filing that shows expenses for the first 3 months of 2023. And at that time, I will check the report and see if he's being paid.
And the one thing I will never do is criticize a fellow journalist for doing an easy story. I mean, that's what we live for. And your role is perfectly valid. I mean, asking the questions. It occurs to me that it's almost like the story we're talking about with the AG filing something. For a political action committee, and this is equal whether it's Republicans or Democrats, to file a campaign finance complaint. talk about something that's going nowhere. And again, it's the benefit of filing it, not winning. And I say that in totally nonpartisan terms. The Democrats would do the same thing.
But you have to remember that this is the same Cori Bush that was screaming about defunding the police while she had a personal security detail of $100,000 plus, right?
I don't think that one has anything to do with another.
I don't think the public agrees with you there,
Well,
Ray.
they might.
I honestly
get
don't.
That. I get that, but I don't
think
think
the
it
fact
has.
that she made such a point about defunding
if
the
you're-
police, looking that you spent $500,000 in a little over 2 years for personal security.
Okay, as someone who
calls into
disagreed
question.
I disagreed with the phrase and said it at the time from the beginning.
And have continued to.
Continue. I completely disagree with defund the police, but someone can take that slogan, which is a bad slogan, but what it means, which is not bad, is that we need more attention to fighting the causes of crime. This, because they advance that that argument, does not disentitle them, is that the right, to having security of their own.
But I was wondering.
It has nothing to do with each other.
Didn't they go after Eric Greitens because of campaign finance also at the end of the day? I don't recall you dismissing that as just campaign finance.
Well,
I think you thought
I
it was a very serious offense when Eric Greitens was accused of it. But now Cori Bush is being accused of it. It's just politics.
Well, first of all, there wasn't a part. It was the Missouri Election Ethics Commission after. Not
campaign finance.
No, but that's not a partisan organization filing a complaint. And completely different situations. In this particular case, and I think Joe alluded to it, I don't think she's in any serious danger of having
Here's
a
the
problem.
concern, of course, isn't it, that, okay, some politician is hiring a family member and calling him a security guard when he doesn't have security guard credentials.
Okay, she got married in, like, February?
Yeah.
Okay, so up until that time, there was no law being broken or campaign ethics. They were right. So we're talking about over the last
5 weeks.
5 weeks?
Right.
I mean, okay, file it, whatever. I mean, you could file that on her side. I'm not telling her to do this, but you can say, oops, sorry, I'll switch that off. And if I were elected to office, I was a congressperson, Rocco at my front door might be kin to me, and I'd say, like, Rocco's getting paid out of the campaign fund because I know Rocco will watch out for me.
But if you,
And all I want you to do, Alvin,
if you get a call from a journalist, answer the question.
She should.
Just tell me if Rocco's still working for you.
Rocco's outside the front door.
She should answer the question. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that
in
it
the
has
future,
nothing to do with defunding the police.
How do you prevent? I mean, I'm not saying the woman's done anything wrong or illegal.
This is much ado about nothing.
But what's to prevent? I mean, the question's raised here. What's to prevent some politician taking campaign money and saying, "Oh yeah, that guy's my security guard," even though it's a friend?
It's my first cousin.
That's not.
Wait,
that's
that's
the
the
point.
point. Wait a minute. If they're providing the service,
No,
But
don't
you're
forget the
saying they
other
have to
firm
be
was providing the
licensed.
service. She bought $300,000 worth of security from another
and
firm.
that's I'm riding around and in parades and all that, but at my front door is
I see.
Rocco.
Well, and
who
the
would
thing
be
is,
nuts
nobody-
coming to my
is there
front
s-
door.
unless
I don't need to be calling 911 or my security service. I got Rocco, my cousin, who says like nobody's going to hurt you.
Charlie, I don't believe there's any statute that says all security personnel for all of our public officials have to have a certain license.
That's why my eyebrows are raised, Ray.
They don't.
Because I'm concerned about that.
And the bottom line is that regardless of who filed the complaint, the FEC will look at the issue and make a ruling. And in that time, I will be with bated breath waiting for the phone call from the
Well, let me ask you.
campaign.
Let's move on because you had another interesting story, and that is Sam Page, the county executive, has, well, actually not just the county executive, the county council as well. They approved $300,000 for an informational campaign to try and pass a tax measure which would levy, 3% on pot sales, right?
Right.
Okay. However, the state constitution says that a government may not spend taxpayer dollars on a campaign.
Yes, it does. And in spite of what that Constitution says, we have more informational campaigns than you can shake a stick at here in Missouri. School boards do it all the time. And I personally find it humorous. It's sort of like me coming to your door and saying, I'm running for alderman. I'm not asking you to vote for me. I just wanted to let you know I'm on the ballot. So, and they go with these informational campaigns. Tom Sullivan, who some people know as a person who has criticized government for decades and attends more meetings than any reporter I know, has filed complaints with the Attorney General's office and plans to file with the Missouri Ethics Commission saying that that the county now, as he has done in University City on several occasions, is spending tax money to raise tax money, and that's unconstitutional. The county's position is this is informational. Some of the things that have come
But hang on. What you also point out that the informational campaign is only being directed to voters who don't smoke marijuana and who are more likely to vote for it.
There seemed to be, in the company that was hired to run the campaign, for which they're being paid $300,000, they discussed with Sam Page's office as to who the message should be targeted to, which critics are saying doesn't really sound like a informational campaign. You have a strategy to win this,
Right.
and they want the money.
Everybody
That's one of
needs
the things
information.
that has it. Also, the county now says they're going to charge that 3% in the municipalities that are also putting a 3% on it. And according to the people who, John Payne and people who ran the amendment through, said stacking is not allowed. But the county is saying, no, we're going to go ahead and stack it anyway.
So a lot of issues
very
here.
interesting story coming down the line.
Okay, you know, I think I've had some emails where I was an idiot or stupid coming from Mr. Sullivan, so I guess I'll get another one.
I've gotten those too.
We all have.
Right. Okay, well, I just disagree. I think this is like saying, like, hey, just put it out there. If we tax this, this is how much money comes into the county, and it's a lot of money. And I don't have a problem with that. Now, I'm not here to argue the constitutionality of the law, and I do understand that, look, if it doesn't stand up to Constitution, no measure, I get it, but I'm not mad at the county for doing it, and I don't think they're out of line. And lastly, might I say, the one thing that I think we have learned over, especially the last 12 years or when Colorado legalized marijuana, there ain't a block in the United States of America that there is not a cannabis product on. So this whole targeting, who does and doesn't use a cannabis project, that's nonsense.
But isn't there, and this was the point that I was trying to make a couple of weeks ago, I think, when we were talking about this. Hasn't this issue proven to be quite litigation? I mean, it is very litigation friendly. I mean, when we talk about Steve Tilley, everybody's talking, you know, lawsuits and licenses and that kind of thing. That was my original argument, but now I'm beginning to side with Mr. Sullivan. I mean, if it is unconstitutional, then the county should.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I agree with that. I just don't know on that point. I'm a little more concerned about Mr. Payne's argument, which is if in fact you can't stack one tax upon another, that seems pretty cut and dried. It'd be interesting to see, because clearly the intention of the people who successfully got this passed was to, was to do the taxation in a certain way.
Right.
And so I'm kind of more tuned into that.
What is
But
every-
we'll have to see.
What does every city, county, state in the United States of America need more of? Money. So let's live. Right, it's about the money.
I'm going to guess
But so does every American in every state, in every city, in every county.
The county will probably prevail.
And I have a feeling many lawyers will be involved before it's all.
And they'll probably
Wendy
make another
Wiese.
300,000.
All right, back to Illinois. I think we were talking about Illinois last week. I hope we were anyway. There's a proposal in Illinois that would prevent drivers or prohibit drivers from driving in cars with pets on their laps. Now, the police in Illinois are understaffed. They've got enough violent crime and other issues to take care of. Do you really think we need legislation to tell motorists that Fido or another pet can't be on the lap while driving?
Well, I mean, and I understand that, I mean, speaking of hate mail, I mean, you're talking about please leave, please leave Fido or Fifi or Gigi or whatever her name is home while you're running errands. But when I see a giant head sticking out from behind a steering wheel, it is distracting. I don't know how they're able, because as we've all learned, you know, these dogs don't sit there stationary looking over the steering wheel. They move around in your lap. So yes, it seems frivolous to you, and we have enough to do, but no, it should not be. It should not be condoned. It should not be legal. It should be definitely pull them over and give them a ticket.
Unlike Wendy, I am pro puppy.
You're pro
pro
puppy.
puppy, yeah.
It's National Puppy Day.
I am in favor of people loving their puppies. So, but I respect your view, though. I do respect.
And I think a person who loves their puppy will put them in a official
Crate.
restrained device
Right.
that keeps them from getting injured if something untoward happened.
Yeah.
I'm with Wendy on this one.
Thank you. It's
Okay, I am too.
We'll split
Now,
the hate mail.
I will say that
I'm pro-puppy.
maybe I'm being, you know, like the larger the animal, the more, you know, prejudiced I am. Living in Illinois back in the day, first road trip I came to St. Louis, I had the cat with me, and we were on the highway, and he said, like, what's going on? So he kind of figured in his mind, like, he seems to think it's okay, so he just got in my lap, and, you know, 2.5 hours later, we're in St. Louis, and, you know, I ain't no problem. But I'm with you. Like, this big old dog head sticking
How
out
can
of the
you
car,
see-
when you see that, I'm
Yeah.
like, no, come on.
Thank you,
Somebody needs to
Alvin.
pull them over.
I
and
think
say,
some people need their animals for anxiety and depression
but
and
they
other
don't help
issues.
drive.
So next,
put
it's
'em
gonna-
right next
so next
to
you
you.
can have a
Right
peacock
there.
So wait a minute, let me get this straight. You're pro-cat, anti-dog. Okay,
I
in this
didn't want to go there, but
no.
yeah, pretty much.
You like the cute dogs, the
So,
cute little dogs, but you don't like the big
I'm
dogs.
just pro-puppy.
The big dogs that obstruct the view of
Well,
the road.
okay, if the dog can do 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock.
Alvin, what did you make of Jacob Kern's story in the St. Louis Business Journal, where he looked at some of the emails that were going back and forth when the county and the city and the Regional Sports Authority got $500+ million in that settlement from Stan Kroenke after the NFL lawsuit? And you had Irv Switzer, local attorney with the RSA, in these emails with Sheena Hamilton and Beth Orwick. Hamilton is an attorney for the city, Orwick for the county. And Switzer was saying, you got to put this money in an interest-bearing account. And his words, which could have raked in millions of dollars a month, were falling on deaf ears. Both Hamilton and Orwick just didn't seem to really get it. They didn't understand why $500 million needed to be in some sort of savings vehicle that was generating serious cash. Did this story kind of tell you that maybe some of our leaders don't know what the heck they're doing?
No, I think that, and it could be that. No, I'm not dismissing that. But what I am also saying is any one of us can walk into our households and say, like, hey, honey, I'm going to move such and such from this account into the interest-bearing account. And so, like, well, wait a minute. What could happen if you do that? And I think if you're an elected official, while it makes sense, by the time we actually went through the process to move this money, it would already, you know, like, and let's say we move this money and the bank sinks. Now, we might be thinking, that'll never happen. Well, I'm sure some people moved some money into some banks in Silicon Valley. And they ain't got nothing now. And they're probably sitting there saying, like, man, we shouldn't have moved that money over to that interest-bearing account. So maybe they were just being conservative. And maybe they were being conscientious of the people's money. So and maybe they were just being incompetent.
Maybe that's a lot of maybes, but we know definitely that we lost out on $4 million.
We don't know that.
Well,
I think we lost at least
I see what
$10
you're
million.
saying.
yeah.
I think we lost $10 million because you have $500 million. Let's say it's getting 3% a year. I mean, that's $15 million. Divide that by all the months
But
that
it
was getting
wasn't a
almost
year,
nothing.
though,
It was just about a year.
I don't think 3%
We got in
is
November of
realistic.
2021.
You could not have done a conservative investment for 3%. I don't think.
I think you could.
I don't think
you
so.
could put it in treasuries.
No, I think it's a little overset. But I heard about this at the time, and at the time I thought it made sense to move it. I know nothing about this stuff though, but I can't. You know, I don't know that we should necessarily single out the attorneys because I'm sure their bosses were involved in this. There was a lot of negotiations about a lot of stuff going on, and it's easy. And again, I'm basically on the side that they should have done something, but I don't think it's.
But they were getting
Dave
warnings by
Spence's-
Yeah, I'm
Wendy.
just saying. I think they
Spence's-
should have, but I don't think that. I'm kind of like Alvin.
Why
I
are you
don't.
cutting them so much slack?
Well, because I think
Aren't
there were a lot
they in
of
a
factors.
position to make these decisions? I mean, Dave
Yeah.
Spence's point was he called it,
Yeah.
you know, over-analysis paralysis.
But I think
But
there
that's-
is some
benefit
some
to
benefit
right.
to, like, no, let's just let it ride or
Yeah.
whatever.
Let it
because I just don't know. People are saying you would have done this or you would have got that, and that's just not proven philosophy with banking and that much money.
I think it is because you have a huge financial institution. You know, the ones that are in trouble now are the smaller ones, but even give it to the federal government in some sort of
too
vehicle.
big to fail, except for my money?
Well, I don't think it has yet.
Well, no, they're not
I mean,
gonna
those
lose their
treasuries are
money
very
and
safe.
No one's losing their money until
look,
going
I'll
badly.
call-
But the point, at least
Well, over 250,000 they are.
I mean, they're not. No, they're not. The federal government's going to be covering them, but the depositors and
Up to a point.
No.
$250,000?
No.
Oh, yeah, that's covered. But you're $500 million.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
Unfortunately, and there's some people that don't think they should. That government is covering them in full on the deposits. That's the whole point. That hopefully they're not bailing out the investors this time, but they are covering the depositors. But the point is, I think that. Again, I think Dave's
20
right.
seconds.
I think he's right, but I don't think it rises to the level of really criticism. You know, I think it's a judgment call.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Let's find out what the viewers had to say about last week's program. This is exactly what DeSantis is doing in Florida. He fired the prosecutor and is now trying to collect data. Gardner challenged her accusers, so now they're trying to actually collect proof that she's not doing her job. That from Jane Raimondo of St. Louis. We also heard from Dr. Gary Thomas Tash, who wrote, regarding Kim Gardner, the state is not them, it is us. It is vital that our institutions function properly. When the prosecuting attorney's office doesn't function, criminals are left at large, endangering us and defaming St. Louis. And we heard from TV's Pete Baxter of Holly Hills. Given that school boards, like Kim Gardner, are duly elected, what allows the state to intervene on behalf of a failing school district, but not for the circuit attorney's office? You can write us care of 9 PBS, 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. Don't forget those emails, Donnybrook at 9pbs.org. And we love those tweets. Use the hashtag DonnybrookSTL and call the 9 line at 314-512-9094 and listen to us on your favorite podcast source. Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and Tune In. And don't forget, we hope you join us for Donny Bash, June the 15th, 2023. Some great tickets still available. Go to 9pbs.org/DonnyBash for more details. In a moment, Bob Linehan, expert on states and sports gambling, will join Alvin and me on Next Up. We hope you join us.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9 PBS.